Hello and welcome to Nicholas Genetics Lessons, and today's question is which of the trees below is false given the phylogeny above. So in this phylogenic tree we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 taxa, and in each phylogenic tree here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 taxa. So on each tree here, 3 of the taxa which we see in this phylogenic tree would be absent, and we have to find if the relationship between taxa here is the same as shown in this phylogenic tree here. Though these phylogenic trees look very different from each other and from this picture above, 3 out of 4 would show right relationship with each other, and only one contain a mistake. So phylogenic tree shows relationship between taxa, but we can arrange the same relationship in different ways. For example, as you see, pine and lily has recent common ancestor here, and we can arrange them in one clade. But we also can change lily with pine and pine with lily, and relationship is going to be the same. Or for example, pine and lily has also common recent ancestor with fern, and we can arrange them in even bigger clade, and this clade we can flip vertically and still going to have the same relationship between them. So let's start our analysis, and we start with this variant A, and let's compare with this phylogenic tree. And I would start with this part where we have pine and lily, which makes a clade. Here, pine and lily also makes a clade, have recent common ancestor. Those, as you see, pine here on the right, lily on the left. Here, lily on the right, pine on the left. But still, the relationship is going to be the same. And we can arrange them in a clade where two taxa have recent common ancestor, which is here. For example, on this picture, we see that this clade, if we go down to the root, so he's going to be a root here, a root here, we are going to see another recent common ancestor with a fern. And if we go down here, we also see the same recent common ancestor with a fern, and we can arrange them in even bigger clade. As you see, the order here is different from what we see here, but relationship is the same. On this phylogenic tree, as you see, we are missing Giardia, E. coli, and yeast, but we have human, which we see here, and also green alga. As I said earlier, this clade here, pine, lily, and fern, is the same as we see here. And if we go down closer to the root, we would see common ancestor with green alga. If we go down here, we also next would see common ancestor with green alga. And we can arrange them in even bigger clade, and this is going to be the same clade as we see here. Absolutely the same relationship between this taxa, though they are going to be arranged differently. Now if we go down to the root, next recent common ancestor is going to be with human of this whole clade. If we take this clade here, which is the same, and go down, we also would see recent common ancestor, which is going to be human. We are missing yeast, we are missing Giardia, and E. coli. So as you see, this whole phylogenic tree is true and shows the same relationship as in this picture. Now let's move to the picture B, phylogenic tree B, and we see here a clade of human and yeast with a common ancestor, and we also see here a clade yeast and human with recent common ancestor here. So let's also put it here. They make one clade. And as you see, they also makes one clade here. Because on this phylogenic tree, we miss fern, lily, and pine completely. And when we go down to the root, next most recent common ancestor is going to be with green alga. If we go down here, next recent common ancestor is going to be, as you see, also with green alga. So far, this part is absolutely the same, with the only difference that this phylogenic tree is missing this part, but the rest relationship is reflected correctly. And if we go down, next is going to be recent common ancestor with giardia. And if we go down here, so we're talking about this point, and we go down, and as you see, also giardia shown here as recent common ancestor. So let me show this point here, and next point is going to be here. If we even go down to the root, we are going to see the recent common ancestor with E. coli. And if we go from this point here down, the next recent common ancestor next to the root is going to be E. coli. So this phylogenic tree also reflects all the relationship between this taxa correctly. Next, variant C. Now let's start with this part. We also can start with this part, it doesn't matter. So we have a clade, human, and east with recent common ancestor, which is here. So let me show it with a dot. And we also see east and human clade here. So far, so good. Also, if we go down to the root, again, let me show the root here. If we go down to the root, we should expect that next recent common ancestor have to be with this clade, which is green alga and pine. So if we go down here, we should have a recent common ancestor with green alga and pine. So lily and fern is just missing on this phylogenic tree. This part can be difficult, so let me highlight green alga and pine. And we also have green alga here and pine, but we are missing this two. If we stretch these two lines, actually 3 lines, 1, 2, 3, you would find that we can make a V. So if we just flip it here, we can make a V with pine and green alga. So this is V with green alga and pine. And this clade here, if we go down to the root, is going to have recent common ancestor with human and east. If we go down from pine and green alga, next recent common ancestor is going to be with east and human. Exactly what we see here. East and humans would make another clade. So let me circle it also. And this is going to be one clade here, another clade here. And we also arrange them even into the bigger clade if we'll take this recent common ancestor, which is also this clade and this clade have here. So far, also so good. Next, down to the root, we should have giardia, but because we don't have giardia here on this picture, next goes E. coli. And this is exactly what we expect. So next recent common ancestor of this clade is going to be with E. coli. And this is exactly what we see here, because giardia just missing from this phylogenic tree. Now we have only one phylogenic tree left, which we have to analyze. Here we see lily and fern, which make the same clade. So let me highlight them with different color. So fern, lily, they make the same clade. So let me circle them because they have recent common ancestor, which is here. Is it correct representation of the relationship or not? Take a look. Here we also have fern. So let me highlight again with red color. Fern, lily. And they have recent common ancestor, which is here. So here's one line that leads to this recent common ancestor. And second, again, we can stretch this line, for example, here, and we are going to have a V just like here. In this phylogenic tree, we are missing a pine. And next, if we go down to the root, we expect that next common ancestor is going to be with green alga. This is going to be this point on this phylogenic tree, and this point on this phylogenic tree. And so far, so good. We also have a correct representation of the relationship between lily, fern, and green alga. Lily, fern, green alga has recent common ancestor here, and both lily and fern can be found at the same distance from this common ancestor. So the length of this line is the same as length of this line. So we done with this part of this phylogenic tree. So we're done with this part of the phylogenic tree. If we go down to the root, we expect that next line is going to lead to human or east. And if we go down here, we see east. And this is also correct representation so far. Next, if we go down to the root, we should see a line of the giardia or E. coli. And if we go down from the east here, we see a line of human, and this is wrong. According to this phylogenic tree, east and human have to be in the same clade. That means that between east and green alga have to be the same distance as between human and green alga. As you see, the distance have to be exactly the same. But let's analyze the distance between east, human, and green alga. And we expect that between human and east, the distance have to be the same in relation to green alga. So what we are going to do, let me add couple lines here. So this is going to be one parallel line to this one. Next one we draw from here, and next one from here. So let's count the distance between, for example, east and green alga. And each fragment here represent a certain period of time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And let's now count the distance between human and green alga, which also have to be the same. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In the first case, between east and green alga, 6. In the second, between human and green alga, 8. But we expect the distance have to be the same. According to this phylogenic tree, as you see, the distance have to be the same. So the last variant is the wrong variant. All the rest represent correct relationship between taxa. Those, as you see, some of the taxa can be missing here, but still relationship is correct. Here, relationship is not correct. Probably some of you would wonder, should it take 15 minutes on your exam to solve such type of problem? Actually not. If you practice, you can solve this type of problem under 1 minute. And this is all for today. Subscribe and see you in the next video. Goodbye.